All right, today I want to talk about a very scary word in the art, poetry community. That word is free.
Freedom.
Well, not that. It's different. We specifically said we weren't going to do that. The freedom we're referring to is creative and financial freedom, because all other freedoms are assumed, right?
I would hope so.
Well, things are backtracking these days.
So we don't know what's
But-
we don't know what's for sure. The one is
But-
absolutely happening. The second one we're gonna talk about.
We're going to be talking about how do we use free as a tool to help grow our poetry and artistic businesses and things like that, because it can be a useful tool. It can be a dangerous one because there are some risks involved that I think all of us are probably already familiar with, but I do want to discuss to a degree. Good morning, guys. Good evening, afternoon. Welcome to Arts and Offers. This is our poetry podcast here at the Versus, where we focus on trying to bridge that connection between art and business in a way that can sustain us in a way that we like creatively and financially. To guide you in this process, there is me. Hello, guys. My name is Jeff.
I'm Matthias.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fairly well.
Okay.
I'm having a pretty good one today. We got some production going on today. When I left the house, we were just paring down some of our set design. I have a shoot a little bit later on. I have a shoot and I have an interview and we're recording. So a lot of production stuff happening all at once. But
Okay.
good times.
If you guys aren't familiar, Matthias just got a new toy he's excited about, new camera.
Yeah, the FX3.
Check out his
Trace.
socials to see some of the clips from it. It looks. It's,
Have
it's
we
very
showed it? Have we
cinematic.
showed it on here yet?
We have not shown it here. No. This is, be careful. Oh my God! Be careful. We have cables all over the place.
He was sleeping, so
It's a very comfy bag.
it came with it.
There's a
came with
lot
it.
going on there. Let's take a look at this bad boy. All right.
Ooh, we got the cage on him. Oh, that's a little bit more centered.
I don't think I saw the
yeah.
cage the previous time. Okay.
Yeah. I think the
You were
last
like,
time I had
I
it
need
here.
this to be a little heavier. So you gotta
Well, no. So, I mean, naturally, for any of the rigs or anything like that, you're gonna have to have a cage on there.
Yeah.
But also, so a couple days ago, we were okay. We were not adopting them, but we got we picked up a stray dog, little puppy, right? And he is a little bit more rambunctious than our other dog, and so this camera was on the tripod.
I don't like where this is going.
This camera was on the tripod, and we because we were shooting. We were doing some interview and some kind of B-roll stuff, and the dog was just kind of going around. And again, he's a puppy. He's a lot clumsier than our dog, but as he was going through, he pulled the legs of the tripod together on accident, and it fell over. And it fell over exactly like that. And man, my heart stopped. Well, actually, you know what? I'll say this. So I'll say I was anxious, but I wasn't as anxious as I would be if there wasn't listen, I have a 3-year warranty on this thing. I have and it's I paid for it with so there's no other payments or anything that I got to make on it. So legitimately over the next 3 years, anything happens with this bad boy, all I got to do is call a number and get this thing sent in. That's the lens, the body, the everything. So I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do with your money or whatever if you guys get equipment, but the kind of security that I feel when it comes to if I'm bringing this on a project, obviously you're going to be careful and you're going to be vigilant as far as safety and stuff like that, but it's worth it.
Did we tell you that Matthias used to sell insurance?
I used to. Well, actually, no. I didn't sell insurance. I was an insurance agent, so I was helping people follow. But which is again, it's even better because I got to see again. And I want to be clear. If you never use it, you'll feel man, I never even.
This is true.
But I'm telling you, if you even have to use it once,
Pay for itself.
Pay for itself. My other the A7 II, I have a couple lenses for it. But my 90mm is my prime. That's really my best. That's the best glass that I have, and on a shoot. We were like shooting over in Hayden Falls, and like while we were shooting, and it was my fault because I was doing a very stupid lens switch in a very stupid place. And so like I'm like switching lenses, and as I'm switching lenses, like I'm picking up the other lens, and I'm like trying to like fit it onto this thing, but I haven't put the 90 millimeter securely into the bag and done that. I was just like, oh, I can hold it like this and like do it. Thing slipped out. It hit like straight rock. It cracked, and like that thing, I was just like, okay, that's done. I literally the next day it was mailed in, FedExed over to Sony, and then Sony just shipped me out a new one. And again, that was like, that was a $110 like expense at the time of me purchasing the lens, but that's like, oh man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it immediately paid for itself right then. So yeah, the warranties they're worth it. If you ever have to use it, they're more than worth it. But yeah, we got ourselves it's a cinema camera. It's part of Sony's cinema line. Do I got a battery in there right now? Feels heavy enough to have. Yeah. It was like it's heavy enough to have a battery.
It weighs as much as a small child.
Yeah. But as you see, I don't know how well you guys could see. Oh yeah, you might be able to see it on there. Yeah.
We out here.
We're out here.
We probably need to do an equipment stream at some point.
We do need to do an equipment stream.
Yeah.
You gotta just add it to the rig and just cycle through. That would be fun.
Mics, cameras, lighting, all that fun stuff.
Ooh, we should bring the bulb light. Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with natural light. That's what we're using right now.
Nothing wrong with natural light.
As long as it's fairly consistent.
As long as global warming isn't the threat that I think it is. Unless you guys have heard something different, then the sun's no problem.
Moving back to free. I think we should start off with, again, maybe some of the dangers of free before we kind of start talking about some of the uses of free. So, Matthias, if I had to ask you, why do you think when we use the word free, there's a lot of caution and hesitation about it in the arts community? Because, again, not a word a lot of artists particularly enjoy hearing with regards to their own work.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think free, a lot of times the only thing that people can attach value to is money, right? So a lot of times when you hear that something is free, or when you hear there's no cost associated with like a product or a performance or something like that, they're thinking that there is no value to be derived from this product or this event. So yeah, I think that's to me, if I had to think about the reason why free, and I want to be clear, free has to be contextualized in order for it to be a problem for me, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody there's very few people there's some people, if they reached out to me right now today anywhere in the United States and said, hey, I need you to do a performance, there's 6 people that would have it regardless. Jeff is one of them. There's 6 people that would be let's do whatever you want to do regardless. But to
be fair, I pay him. When I do pay him. If he does a reading, it's usually
this is exactly how to end of slavery. To be fair, I pay this guy.
I do pay him. But, please.
But yeah, no. But to be clear, again, obviously, there's relationship there. There's history there. And there's reciprocation, you know what I mean? So there's energy there that makes that make sense. But there's some people they'll reach out, kind of out of the clear blue. They know you from your performance, so they've seen you perform, and again, to them, they're it kind of depends, and kind of again contextualize. The context kind of matters. So if somebody's reaching out to you and you don't really get anything from this performance, but nothing, you know what I'm saying? If you don't get anything, but they're trying to get you to do it for free, then yeah, that's definitely something that I would be that's something that I would not move forward with. There's other spaces. There's well, actually here I'll finish that part later. What about free do you think is is a
Yep.
little scary for artists.
Yeah, so I think that first part you mentioned just about value, like a lot of people are only thinking about value in terms of money, even though there are other ways to assign value. Um, and to kind of speak to that too, I think a lot of artists are in that mindset with money because there's a lot of mindset around money as being something to hoard versus money being a resource that can build other resources.
Yeah.
And so if you view it as something to hoard, then yeah, literally if you lose money, you're literally losing something that's really important to you. Also because
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of artists are working jobs that pay hourly. And so the association between time and money becomes very one-to-one
That's true.
versus using money to create an asset that pays for you regardless of how much time you work on it. Like if you let's use poetry world. Like if you have a book, the book is selling for you whether you're asleep or whether you're awake or whatever
Yeah.
you're doing. So there's a different correlation between it. So the more that we're able to kind of create other assets that are away from time labor, then I think that weakens that connection between money being that resource to hoard versus money being a tool. So that's the first thing. I think the other thing that we see a lot in the art world with regards to free is that if we're being offered something like an opportunity and the payment is free, a lot of times the way it's justified is through exposure, which is another kind of word you hear thrown a lot in the art world. Like, oh, well, you're going to think of all the people you're going to get in front of. Think of the exposure that you're going to get, and people using that as a way to justify not paying an artist.
Yeah.
And that can be something to watch out for. There may be a time where exposure actually might be worth it, but most likely, especially if you're starting out, the things that you're getting opportunities for exposure for probably aren't.
Yeah, and I think there's a time, but there's also a function of exposure as well. I think about, with a lot of the performances that happen here. As you already know, as a lot of y'all probably know, for Diverse's poetry, for Diverse's, like for all the performances, like the Monday performances at the stanza, like those are recorded. Like Jeff is like recording the performance.
They're also paid too, by the way.
They're paid.
They
They're
are paid,
performing, but it's also like,
but it's very low pay. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just to say that like they're recorded, and so the person that is performing, they get a recording of their performance as well as their interview. And when we're talking about exposure, I think that's like, a lot of times at venue, they might offer you like this kind of exposure package, or they might be saying you're getting exposure, but they're not doing any extra effort beyond booking you to make sure that as many people see you as possible.
And I do just want to qualify that.
Yeah.
For an event that puts a lot on attendance.
Yeah.
Because one thing with our events, and I tell this a lot to the poets that come. I was literally last night we had a poet come in for the micro mic, and she was nervous about attendance. She's like, I don't know how many people are going to come, and I was like, with this show, my space is so small, like I can't fit a lot. I don't want necessarily a whole lot of people here because I literally can't fit them. And the other thing too is that I put so much on the production side of it. So like, I try to make it clear with these events, like I don't really, if it's just you and me reading or if it's a full room, that doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is the video, because the video gets to live in like the production thing. But if the person you're talking to isn't making that clear and it's making it seem like it's kind of like a typical event where it's like seats are the big indicator, then that's the promotion aspect's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about Diverses and kind of like the mission that is like that you're undertaking with it, because again, I think one of the things that I've developed over the past couple years is like a really clear taste for content like acquisition. Like what are you doing right now? If 5 years from now, you're going to be really happy that you were documenting it at the very least, if not like, kind of putting it out and continuously putting yourself out there. And one of the things that, one of the reasons that I even got into the game of like recording and like photography and things like that was because we, during quarantine, we went into this really large, window of time of you can't just go out there and be in front of people. So you don't get the, room full of like attendees hearing your work. So now you actually have to have some kind of production around, what you're doing to kind of set yourself apart. And so the fact that, every one of these performances, you're going to get that recording, you're going to get like some really good, okay, this is really important. Really good audio, in the sphere, and like Jeff, I'm sure like he's talked about this 1,000 times, but there's like this film festival that I'm gonna be in spring of this year, and we had this like big like kind of like Zoom meeting, and everybody is like, well, I guess not, what is it? Google Meets meeting.
Yes,
I was saying that. But like we were in this big meeting and we're all kind of talking about like projects that we're working on and things like that. And it was the funniest thing is that like one of the filmmakers, like she was kind of talking about her audio setup, and she was just like kind of what she was going to do for her, like what she was working on for her audio setup for the film that she's hopefully going to have production wrapped and ready for this film festival. And like everybody in the group was all like kind of in unison. Like don't like, because like the thing that you're thinking about doing is like it's not going to get you great audio. It's not going to get you even like really good audio.
She's like, I'm doing outdoors.
There's like outdoors. There's like
shotgun like.
Well, it wasn't even shot. So like I think that would have been like preferable. I think everybody, and I don't want to throw it out there because there was a brand of lapel mics and like a way that she was going to be like affixing the mics like to her subjects that everybody, as soon as we heard her plan, like and it was cool because it's like, and like this was actually another thing that's really cool because now, because it's a community, everybody could be like, hey, like let me help you out, like that sounds cool right now, but you're just not going to get the kind of sound that you want. But yeah, it's all just to say that like really good sound in your performances is going to set you apart from a lot of stuff that happens online, because a lot of people they're recording, a lot of people are doing this, they just have this going on, and that is separating the sound really far away from like the subject, and and it's evening out the sound like from everything else. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So yeah, having really good sound is important.
Yeah. Speaking of just a quick phone recording tip, just get a microphone. Like it doesn't have to be, to start off, it doesn't have to be expensive. Like if you're recording on your phone, just get even a $20 microphone is better than what's on your phone in a lot of cases, and then if you like it, then you can invest in more expensive ones. But
they have a really cool sale if you, I don't know if it's still happening, Midwest Photo.
But they might do one in the future, so that might be a place to check out. So Midwest Photo.
Yeah, Midwest Photos are definitely a good place to check out. We got a couple mics, but yeah.
So those are some of the issues that potentially can come with free, and there's others as well. But free can also be a very valuable tool to leverage, whether you're negotiating a contract, whether you're working, you want to be part of an event, or you want to be part of a program. There may be ways that you can leverage it to get you in to a door that otherwise would be closed, because there may not necessarily be a way for them to pay you. But if you're like, you know what, if maybe I can negotiate something else. For instance, nothing is, no price is 100% set. Everything is negotiable to a degree. So for instance, if I see that there's an event going on and I want to try to get booked at it, I can, for instance, talk to the organizer and say, hey, I would like to be a part of this. I know that you're paying most of your other speakers a fee and you don't know me. So in lieu of a fee, I can, if you give me some stage time, I can, for instance, do some recording of your event. I can volunteer to help with seating. I can edit video or audio for you after the event. I can help you create some social media posts so you don't have to worry about just trying to be creative in terms of the thing that we offer to people might help us get some opportunities that otherwise we would miss out on.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think exactly what you said, and I think one of the other things, like really assessing gaps and maybe like the operation that like the that they're operating with, or like kind of the elements they're operating with, that you can fill like naturally, that aren't like it may, you know, if you want to, if you wanted to come at a cost to you, if that's appropriate for you, like maybe, but like yeah, exactly what Jeff was talking about when we're talking about like having a recording setup. Like he has, you know, pretty much he has a roving studio. So if he goes to an event, he could also be a studio for this event. He could also be a production space for this event. And I think a lot of people, because a lot of people are thinking putting the event on and having the event, and that's great, but you can sell somebody really easily on, hey, like you guys are gonna want to watch this tomorrow. You guys are gonna want to, you put together a really great production. You're gonna want to have this to sell other productions.
Yeah.
You're going to want to do this. And I think once you're able to be kind of in that position, and mind you, like something like that kind of takes a, like, you know what I mean? Like it took some work to be able to get the instrumentation required in order to kind of make that pitch. But it's a worthwhile pitch. I think I've made that pitch to like 6 or 7, and it wasn't for me to speak at events. It was for me to like for me to be able to do the content package. That way I can sell other things, right? So there was a performance event that I was like, yeah, like I have a couple cameras, I can kind of set something up, and then that way we can like record something for you. And then now I like, not only do they have that, I also have that. So like that's proof of concept for, you know, okay, like, hey, like if you guys want something like this, book me.
And I know you mentioned you've worked for like even like some news things and things like that. Like they take clips from you, and then what can you do? You can put that on your website, and it costs you. And you didn't even have to do additional work. Like you just hand them the footage already.
Yeah.
It's like, and now I can add that to my credentials. This was used by so and so.
And yeah, and that's also okay. So it's not quite so. One of the things that happens a lot of times with poetry is that you're always writing poems, and you're always creating things, and you're hoping that there's and maybe not, like, but like you're hoping that, you know, like you're going to be able to be put in a position to perform here, or, you know, kind of get your work into this space. That's kind of what happened with, like, I done content for one of Ajane's exhibits, and then NBC4 and PBS ended up using like that content. But all you have to do is you just have to make sure you're doing like clean, good work.
Yeah.
And then as you putting it out there, like places are going to be able to see that and be like, oh, we can use that. We can use that content.
Yeah.
So yeah, also like staying busy, like if you, especially, and Jeff knows this more than most, like, you know, once you have the equipment, if you're waiting for opportunities to come to you to be able to utilize it, like, yeah, I mean, you might not get them.
No, it might be
like you create those opportunities for yourself.
It might even be worth paying someone to find opportunities for you. You know, if you feel like I'm too busy creating, well then, hey, pay someone $20 an hour. Just be like, yo, shop this around, find someone who's interested.
Yeah.
You know, it might be worth it. You know,
Might be.
But then again, like you get to put their logos and things like that on your website to say that you've worked with them.
This is an inside joke. That's not an inside joke. That's happening right now. But just know.
You know, you at least let people know that, hey, you can find my content on these other larger platforms as well.
Yeah.
To have some weight to their name.
Yeah.
And I think that if we want to approach it, just one other example too. I was listening to a speaker. His name is Vin Zhang, and one of the things he does a lot of public speaking stuff, and he was talking about how he does a lot of video. He knows how to do videos, and he went to buy an RV, and one way he got the price to be lower for the RV is like, hey, I like this RV. I'm paying the price for it, but I also saw, you know, just checking your social media stuff, like your guys' videos on your social, like you don't really have anything that's like showcasing any of your, you know, your equipment out here. If you guys knock off the price a bit, I'm happy while I'm here, I've got like a camera in the car and a mic. I'm happy to shoot some content for you that you can use on your own socials. So this again goes back to the idea that everything's negotiable. So he was able to get a lower price on an RV, a pretty expensive vehicle, significantly drop the price just by providing a service to them. How can you make every engagement you enter into like a win-win situation for everybody?
Yeah.
And
Turn your skills into assets. Like that's kind of like the most important thing, Like again, and it's kind of in the same way that like poets writing good poems. If you really think about it, like think about like a lot of poets relationship to like production houses or like you know what I mean. So it's like like publishers. So like you're an asset to a publisher because the publisher's like the publisher says I want to sell units of something to somebody that's going to it costs me, I don't know, $4.50 to make, but I can sell it for $17 if somebody's name and writing and illustrations are inside like our package with it. And like that is the way that you're an asset to them, right? And so you've been able to turn your work into an asset for this publisher to be able, and then naturally because you're an asset to the publisher, they pay you, accordingly. And so the same exact way, like once you have the equipment and you really the real asset is your knowledge of how to use the equipment, right? So it's like I don't know about Jeff. I'm not leasing my my camera and stuff like that out to anybody, right? Yeah. So it's like somebody needing footage is them saying, "I need you to come and like kind of take footage." Right. So, but yeah, so it's just like if you're able to turn those things into assets that other people can utilize, then it's not necessarily free because they're getting something out of the bargain. Mm-hmm. That is just not necessarily money.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk poets who maybe don't have, the cameras and the things like that. But all right, well, I just write poems. Well, what can I do about that? Well, I think we've talked before about let's talk books and chapbooks. I think a lot of writers I've talked to get a bit defensive. We're viewing the book as the final piece instead of being step one. Because that book, I'll put it like this, like you have a book, maybe you're charging $10, $15, $20 for it, and you're looking at, I was actually just talking to, again, our feature from last night, and she was talking about her website, and she's like, well, no one's actually bought my book from my website, so
really,
I mean, that's all, we've talked about websites before, we can return to that, but what this speaks to, so if you have a book that's like $20 and no one's getting it, what's the harm necessarily in buying 100 copies of your own and giving them out? And people are like, what? Why would I buy my own book and give it to people for free? Like what? No, like what? But think of how many more people are now getting access to the book and maybe starting a conversation. Like if I had a book and I'm trying to really get it out, my view is, I need people to buy the book, but I also need as many people to get access to the book to talk about the book. If no one's talking about the book's not going to sell.
Yeah.
People need to be talking about the book. How can I get people to talk about the book? Well, the first thing is I need people to read the book. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to give people copies. And I think people will still associate value with it because they understand that the book itself is not free. They see the price tag. They know that it's in stores and things like that. Like it's different if it's like you just like pass out books. Like the book is always free versus like, hey, this book is normally this price, but here I am giving you a free copy. That's a very different experience.
Yeah.
And what if you give everyone, you give 10 people, 20 people, 30 people 2 copies of your book? Because most people, one, they may not even read 1 copy of the book. So they're like, what am I going to do with 2 copies of the book? I was like, oh, this guy give me a book. You want it?
Yeah.
So it's like, so now you get people starting to kind of distribute the book a little bit on their own. And you still may be like, all right, well, how do I get the money to pay for the book? All right, well, for instance, what if you were to organize a reading? Or what if you go to readings and maybe you're able to get fees or something like that? And so maybe the fees can cover the cost of purchasing the book. It's like, what if like there's a reading for my book and people paid $5, $10, $15 for entry? You know, so they come and they hear me read poems. And then at the end of that reading, they're like, hey, I really appreciate you guys coming out to this reading to hear me, you know, share these poems with you. As a thank you, you can pull an Oprah, be like, check under your seat. And then under everyone's seats, like, oh my gosh, look, a free copy. Like things like that. Because we have to create opportunities for people to, again, talk about what we're doing. Because if people aren't talking, if they're not remarking, then the book's not going to do you any good if it's just sitting on shelves in a bookstore or online and no one's, or you probably wrote the book for the words to be shared, not for the words to be gate kept.
Yeah. And that's the experience in getting something, or like I kind of taking things in, is like actually kind of really important. Funny anecdote. So I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and one of the things that we did like every Saturday is like we would like do like field service. We would knock on people's doors, and if they were home, we would try to talk to them about the Bible and all that good stuff. But then if they weren't home, we would like leave tracts inside of their door. And what you typically found is that like people, if they saw those, they would like, unless they were going through something in their life that they looked at it and was like, this is amazing, they would kind of like, man, like somebody else was here trying to just like leave stuff in my door. Because it's really hard to sell the whole, hey, your salvation is dependent on this thing. It's dependent on you reading this thing that's in the door.
No pressure.
No pressure. But yeah, so like that experience is like actually kind of really is really important, because like when, now my drive left his face, but like, you know, when you're actually able to talk to somebody and have like a conversation, and that conversation is bookended with like literature or a book or something like that, like that's a much more like enticing like way to kind of take something in.
Also because people now have an association with it. So like if I give out a free copy of my book to everyone who attends an event that I host, now every time they see the book, they don't just see the book, they see the event.
Yeah.
You know, in their mind, they think back. So there's a memory association. Whereas with most books you buy, you don't have that.
Yeah.
There's no real connection. The more emotional ties you can create with something, the more lasting the memory is for it, and the more evocative it's going to be. You know, because that's really the key. Is like if we're creating these like kind of memorable experiences, we got to create something that's actually memorable and something that's worth talking about. So, for instance, if we go back to that event example where, you know, I do a reading in front of 20 people, I get 20, each of them gets a free copy of my book. I can't just give them a copy of the book. That book probably needs to be gift wrapped, ribbon, you know, personalized thank you message. The more I can make that book, the book itself, an event, in addition to the event they were at, the more that they're going to be like, oh yeah, I was at this reading, and it's like, look at what he did. He did the little, like if I can get like some wrapping paper that's like really interesting, or a ribbon that's really interesting, like how can I make it an experience as much as possible? And I know this is an investment, but again, we're not viewing money as something to hoard. We're using it as something that can build other things. Yeah. So it's like that experience is going to help people establish a stronger connection with me, you know, so then in the future, you know, hopefully they can have a more positive relationship with me, and I can have a more positive relationship with them, and actually have a relationship instead of nothing and anonymous.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I think about like the, you know, if you are in the position where, I mean, it also kind of depends on, you know, I would say like how prominent you are in the market, right? So like somebody like Hanif drops a book tomorrow, you don't need some kind of crazy special presentation in order to sell that book. Like Hanif's name on the book is gonna sell the book. Now, to be clear, he creates great books, like, so like that's not like, this is not me saying, but it's just me saying that like, you know, like a lot of this kind of also kind of pertains to like how you kind of present it. in the market. And I think about like, if you're somebody who's just now trying to get out there and like you're trying to sell your $20 book, like again, even if you're doing all of these things like kind of in the market, like you have to keep in mind like I'm trying to, who is my audience and who am I trying to get this to, and like what method of like what kind of delivery system do I think is going to like really impact them.
And I think the other thing too is that, well, a couple things. The first thing is that this is it's a long-term strategy. This isn't going to be something that's going to change your life tomorrow. This is something that we're thinking 2, 3, 5 years down the line. And the other thing too is that we need to consider that these strategies that ideally are going to give us success in the future, we can't separate them from the success in the future. So like, for instance, if we stop doing this sort of action, like we take these aggressive actions now and then we stop doing them later, you can't necessarily assume that the success you have in the future is just going to carry to success in the future.
Yeah.
You can lose sight of, oh, this is how I was able to achieve that success.
That's it, yeah.
If I turn off the faucet, it could go away.
Yeah.
It could stop. Sometimes we feel like we reach like a point where it's like, oh, it's going to disappear. Like, if I were Hanif and like I was doing like a book signing, like, okay, you could do your typical book signing. What if, like, unknown to people, like the first 100 or 200 people that came through, I gave them a copy of another one of my books for free. Like, hey, thank you so much for coming to my book signing. To show my appreciation, I'm also going to give you this other book. Because then what are people going to do? They're going to go to their social media page. They're like, oh my gosh, I got a book signed, and you give me, I got 2 signings. Like think of like all the excitement that in the conversations that picks up. And what if like Hanif gives different books to different people, or like what if Hanif gives books of like artists that have impacted him. So then like, and then people get reached out to that artist, and like it starts a whole new chain reaction.
And I think that the thought of like not forgetting kind of what got you there is, I mean, that's really important, because even if you think about like something in a different field, like you think about like bodybuilders, right? Like you see somebody, they might have this picture of their, or maybe let's take even somebody from like another dynamic. It's like somebody's like, I am overweight and I'm looking to lose this amount of weight so I can get to my goal weight. If they hit their goal weight and they stop doing everything that got them there, it's only going to be a matter of time until they're kind of back where they didn't want to be, right? And it's this thought that like, no, you are somebody, you're on a trajectory, and because you're on a trajectory, like you have to one of the things that like I started doing is like journaling. Okay, like what is my build out for my camera equipment right now? Like what is,
it's like documenting,
like my cleanest, most direct, what is the build out that gets me the highest quality audio and visual with the lowest build out time, right? Because like I don't know how much you guys have like done a lot of production. I know Jeff like has done a ton with production. Like time is not
if you can do something that saves you 1 second that you're going to repeat 1,000 times, you need to do that. You
need to seek those things out. Like literally, like be at home and be like, okay, let me set up a production right now. Time yourself, figure out what kept you from doing it in 20 minutes. Okay, what can I do in 15 minutes, and stuff, cataloging on all that other good stuff. But the kind of videographer that I am today would be completely foreign to the kind of videographer I was 2 years ago. Like what I'm able to do and what I'm able to accomplish with the equipment and the time and stuff like that. And then hopefully in 3 years, the kind of videographer that I am today is like, what were you doing, right? Because you should be growing and you should be evolving, but it's because you're doing these small things over and over and over again, and you don't stop doing those things. You know what I mean? Like once you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've grown to, now I can put on the kind of production that I really wanted to put on. Well, I have to keep doing those things, or I have to keep even doing them in a greater fashion in order for me to really evolve and be able to keep evolving. Yeah. Or even really, honestly, to stay in the same place, I have to continue to do them in order to maintenance it. Yeah.
Yeah, there really is no staying the same. Rather, you're getting the better or you're getting worse. It's very hard to maintain. I think the last area of free I want to talk about is in relation to, again, another word that people have mixed feelings about, social media, YouTube, stuff like that. These platforms are, for the moment, free.
Yeah.
And like the reality is that like the fact that YouTube is free is pretty mind-boggling because videos are big files and the server space, like people complain about like ads on YouTube and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, you understand, like they allow you to post videos there for free. Like their operating budget is so high. Like it's like they're getting terabytes worth of video every single day, if not every single hour.
Every single second.
Like the server sizes for that. Like it's
dude.
The fact that between all the channels I have, you're looking at about, I don't know, like 1,500 videos. Like I don't even want to think about the size, and that's just my stuff. Forget about
think
like,
about how much they're
yeah.
housing. Like think about
Yeah.
like somebody has, they have however many public videos that you see. There's probably 5 to 10 times more like private videos that people are like, okay, I'm putting on here and I'm going to be publishing it later on, or like I'm just using it for like continuity.
And they let them stay. Like videos that have like 5 views from like 10 years ago are still on the platform. Like it's so. Anyways, like the fact that we can do that for free is huge. The fact that I can reach, between all my channels, if you threw in like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, I'm looking at per month, like 800,000, 900,000, 1 million impressions per month per 28 days. My Instagram's not very big, but being able to reach, 5 to 10,000 people, oftentimes a week, even on a small channel and a small platform, like it's just the amount of people you're able to access and get in front of for free right now. It's so wild, and it's something that I think we really need to appreciate because it may not always be that way. And so if you're not doing this stuff, if you're not thinking video, if you're not thinking about YouTube, if you're not thinking about social media posts, if you're not thinking about creating profiles directly related just to your art, I really do think you're missing out on opportunity. And it's not necessarily something that's going to translate to, income directly, especially like overnight. Like this is something that takes year. We're looking at like the 5-10 year plan. We're not looking at the plan for the end of the week. But it also makes you so much more findable. A lot comes down to like if I wanted to look you up, like how many hours could I spend with you online? Like if I really like what you're doing. And I think the reality, like especially with relation to your own work, like not just like your personal stuff, but like read what you've written, watch what you've posted, those sorts of interactions in relation to your work. How long could I do that with you for? And if the reality is that if that answer is like less than 2 hours, well then we're really missing out on opportunity, because it's never been easier to have hundreds, if not more, hours of you expressing your own art or unique views on art. It's never been easier to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's also something to be said for like when you're able to like transition like either your craft or your crowd, like from people that are sitting like directly in front of you to like social media, and be able to communicate like this is where you can find me like online. Because again, I would always say like the most valuable, not necessarily the most valuable, but an incredibly valuable person, like audience member, is like somebody that you could get to come out to an event physically, right? Like that's always going to be like really, really valuable. But if you can get that person to again have like a really genuine experience and then interact with you online in a really meaningful way, I think like that person's word of mouth is going to carry like really, really far.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, there's like kind of like a spreading effect.
Yeah. And also it works online too. Like if you're able to create like an online event that people are able to turn it for,
Yeah.
that's also huge. I mean, one of the things I've seen is that with my own teaching, I've seen people that I don't even directly mention it, but I have people that from teaching have found my poetry stuff, without
Right.
even actively searching it, and being able to host events or like, for instance, for teaching, I started a podcast and, within a couple months that podcast is able to get, like 2,000 like downloads a month, which isn't crazy, but it's like,
Yeah.
for those of you who started podcasts before, that doesn't happen where you just start a podcast and then it gets downloaded 2,000 times a month. That doesn't happen. But because you're able to build up an audience and then you say, hey, I'm starting this new platform over here. If you're interested, come over. And obviously not everyone's going to come, but a portion of them might if you're really giving them something.
Yeah, and then those subsections are going to kind of speak to each other. So it's like for Jeff when he like talks about like language, and then now you have people that are like, okay, if you're interested in that, like, well, I mean, even take it, let's take like back when you're like in school, right? You have language arts class. Now, it's likely that somebody whose favorite class is the language arts class, if your school doesn't have like a poetry subsection, like when you're like in, I don't know, I was in middle school, then we had like a poetry club. So then we had like poetry club was formed by our language arts teacher, so it was like kind of like a branch off of that. But everybody that was, if you were really good in language arts and like you were really good in the poetry section, then there was a separate little poetry club that like you could kind of be a part of. And so yeah, so like somebody that's really interested in one, there's going to be a branching off subsection of like those people, but then those people are going to be able to spread the word and like they're going to create another kind of pocket of audiences that you're like, okay, people that are like minds with those people that are kind of branching off, they're able to kind of build into a community.
A lot there. Matthias, any final thoughts on free as a tool?
Just yeah, I don't know. I mean, at kind of our first point, but I think it's like still just really important is that like if somebody's offering you something for free, or somebody's saying like, hey, I want you to do something for free, like that initial little gut feeling where you're like, man, like I don't know if like I don't know if I would do something for free. That's right. Like that is correct. To be clear, I wouldn't recommend anybody just say yes to every thing that somebody tries to tell them is free. I would never close the door on something because it was free. I would like, and again, everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't have time for the rest of the conversation if it starts with that. But for a lot of creatives, and I think a lot of creatives could benefit from it, really being able to hear like a good pitch out and really being able to see like, okay, what exactly can this venue, this space, this organizer, whoever it is, offer me that is not necessarily money, but they're set up to do something maybe more impactful.
Right.
Kind of in the same way that the micro mics are set up. And again, people are paid for them, but it's like they're set up to be able to give you something that is very high quality.
Yeah.
That maybe, if a performance space is, maybe they're giving you $50 to perform, but you don't have any record that ever happened except for the flyer. Yeah. So like maybe like something like this would be even more impactful for you. So yeah, I would never shut off the conversation at free. I would always try to figure out like what kind of value, and really being able to clearly assess it. So like if somebody's pitching it to you like, well, I can give you this, and this, really looking at the layout of those things and seeing if it's worth it to you. Because a lot of times it is.
Mm-hmm. You can always ask for more too. Yeah. Ask them to like, hey, I'll do it for free, but I want a video or I want some stupid, and they can say no. Yeah. But at least voice it.
Yeah. I'll never forget. No, never forget. But like, so somebody had reached out to me, and essentially and this is like for like my videography, they were like, hey, I really think that you would be good at this project, and they tried to pitch this project to me. And I think it was like one of these situations where I'm like, I want to hear you out about like kind of what the project is and everything like that, because like he said he doesn't really have a budget, and then he tried to pitch it like it was gonna be my project. You know what I mean? It was like, I think you would be interested in it, and you should do this and all this other stuff. And I was like that was an instance where you could be like, okay, like it's not gonna be my project. You know what I'm saying? Like this is not something that I'm necessarily interested in. And I think that's also important. Like kind of really keeping your head on a swivel, because you can get kind of sold on stuff like that. Just making sure, because again, I wouldn't have gotten much out of that experience. But I would have thought I was, because he was like kind of trying to sell me on it. So yeah, just keeping your head on a swivel, and really, I would also even say making a list right now, while there's no pressure, while there's nobody asking you, really kind of make a list of things that you need from like if somebody's booking you for a performance. What are things that you need? And like maybe if they're paying you $1,000 to perform, you don't need a video, you don't need this, you don't need, because they're giving you $1,000. Yeah. But like maybe if you're like, I need a video, I need this, I need this, I need this. But what if they're like, well, I can't give you money, but I can give you a three camera angle performance with great audio, and I can have a 48-hour turnaround time. Like maybe that is like, man, that actually sounds really appealing. So yeah, making I think, yeah, make that list of what you would need to be paid, and make sure that money should be one of them, but it shouldn't be the only thing.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this gives you some things to think about in terms of free as a tool. If you have your own thoughts or other situations you've gone through with free that you want to share, it'd be good to see them. Otherwise, we'll see you all later. Thanks for hanging with us. Once again, my name's Jeff.
I'm Matthias.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you, guys. We will see you all later. Hope you guys have a good day, a good night, and a good